Okay, so I'll take off where Rudy left, but I'll go back to that moment in the men's room when, there's an echo here, right? Yeah, okay. Should I just say that again? Now it's better. Can you hear me in the back? Okay. So I'll go back to that moment in the men's room and I asked him, is the brain a noun or a verb? And this is what we want to understand today, I hope. There are no nouns in the universe. Nouns are conventions of language. Everything is a process. Everything is an activity. Everything is a verb. The universe is an activity right now, okay? Dark matter, dark energy, gravitational forces, electromagnetic forces, strong and weak interactions, subatomic particles emerging from the infinite void and popping back in. It's so fast, this dynamic activity, that you cannot actually pin it down. You cannot pin it down. So the universe is an activity, but so is your body. Your body is not a noun. It's not just the brain, your body. The body that you are using right now to listen to my words is not the body that you came in with a little while ago. Because your body is a verb, it's an activity, it's a process, and it's a very dynamic process. And how does the process occur in our bodies? And this will lead us to epigenetics and neuroplasticity, eating, breathing, digestion, metabolism, elimination, experiencing the world through the five senses, thoughts, feelings, emotions, desires, imagination, intention. This is the process, okay? And because of this process, your body is never still. In fact, with every breath that you breathe in about 10 to the power of 22 atoms, which is 10 followed by 22 zeros. That's a huge number of atoms. But with every breath that you breathe out, you're doing the same thing. You're breathing out 10 to the power of 22 atoms. And where are they coming from? From all the cells of your body. So you're literally breathing out this moment, bits and pieces of your heart and kidney and brain tissue. And technically speaking, we're all intimately sharing our organs with each other right this moment. Okay? So this is not a metaphor. Our body is an activity of the universe. It's an activity of the ecosystem. And we ourselves are an ecosystem. The whole body is an ecosystem. The brain is an ecosystem. The cells are an ecosystem. The DNA is an ecosystem. There is only the ecosystem. In just the last 3 weeks, a quadrillion atoms have gone through your body that have gone through the body of every other living species on this planet. So think of a tree in Africa, a squirrel in Siberia, a peasant in China, a taxi driver in Calcutta, and you have stuff in your body that was there only 3 weeks ago. So this body that I'm using right now to manufacture this lecture is my year 2014 model. And the last time I came to Aspen, I brought the same suitcase, but not the same body. Why? Because my suitcase is more in the direction of a noun than a verb. It's more a thing. But even actually, if you look at the suitcase, you'll see it has a longer shelf life, but it also is a process. Okay, so the first insight I hope you have with this is, if you think you're your body, then which one are you talking about? Okay, you had the body of a baby, you had the body of a teenager, you have this body now, and tomorrow it'll be something else. When you start to recognize it's a process, then you have to say, where is this process happening? What is the process? Okay, you cannot say, I am my body. Because as I said, then which one? So now let's go to the second level, mind. We started with the universe as an activity. Your body is an activity. But what about our mind? And there are a lot of people who talk about, how do you define the mind? That's one of the problems we have in sciences. Lots of times people don't agree on definitions. So what I'd like to do is I share with you a definition of mind that few people can criticize. And this comes actually from Dan Siegel, whom we've quoted before. He says the mind is an embodied and relational process that regulates the flow of energy and information. I'll repeat that. The mind is an embodied and relational process that regulates the flow of energy and information. Where? Well, I'll say in the whole ecosystem. Okay, so right now I'm speaking to you. So what am I doing? I'm transmitting my thoughts to you by some very mysterious mechanism that we don't fully understand. Those thoughts are turning in your body to electrochemical activity in your brain, and you're understanding what I'm saying. Okay, so thoughts, mind, activity, which is both relational and embodied. Okay, because we are having a relationship right now. I'm conveying information to you, and I can sense from a little bit of your body language that you're getting it, okay? So what is happening as a result of this exchange of information and energy also, because you need energy to transmit the information. What's happening as a result of this? Okay, your cortex right now is getting active, genes are getting activated, neurotransmitters are getting activated, but believe it or not, your entire body is responding to this information, not just your brain. Because those neurotransmitters, they have receptors not only in your brain, but in all the cells of your body. Okay? Now here's the interesting thing. The cells in your body are not only responding to this, but they're actually participating in this conversation right now. Okay? So today, and I'm not going to have time to go in all the details, scientific details, but we have enough time to do some of the details. And here's the key thing to understand, that these neurotransmitters or neuropeptides, as we call some of them, they're not just in your brain. They're in all the cells of your body, okay? Your body responds to them, your body makes them. So today, if you say, I have a gut feeling about such and such, you're not speaking metaphorically, you're speaking literally. Your gut makes the same chemicals that your brain is making right now as you're metabolizing this information. Okay? You can probably trust your gut feelings a little more because your gut cells haven't yet learned or evolved to doubt their own thinking. But I think now we no longer need to say my heart is heavy with sadness or bursting with joy. I feel ecstatic, like we were dancing this morning. Your mind is in your body. In fact, your body is your subconscious mind. Okay? Our mind is embodied and relational. But now recognize that today our mind has extended beyond our bodies. Why? Because we have the internet, we have social networks, Twitter, Facebook, you name it. So the mind has escaped the boundaries of the body. It's everywhere. I can send a tweet or a little emoticon to somebody in China, and I can give them a dopamine hit at the speed of light. Okay? Or I can send a threatening piece of information to somebody in Russia, and I can give them a cortisol and adrenaline surge, which will immediately play on their immune system, set off the fight-flight response, and create havoc, physiological havoc in their body. And not only you can do that to an individual, you can do that to communities, to societies, to the whole world. So where's the mind? It's everywhere. Okay? Where is the body? It's everywhere. How can you say, this is mine? Only 2 weeks ago, it was a chicken. Okay? Or how can you say, this is mine, if only a season ago, it was an apple? Okay? In fact, you can't even stop there, because the carbon, the hydrogen, the oxygen the nitrogen that makes most of your body, which is, 95% of our body is carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. The rest is the remaining elements in the periodic table. Where do these atoms come from? Well, they were made in the crucible of stars billions of years ago. In fact, it's very likely that the carbon in your right forefinger is different, comes from a different galaxy than the carbon on your nose. It takes the whole universe to conspire to create this physical body that you are right now. So, what's the location of your body? It has really no location. Okay? It's everywhere. In fact, it's the whole universe. What's the location of your mind? If it's the flow of energy and information, it's everywhere. How do we metabolize meaning and purpose and context and relationship? Which part of the brain? That gets very tricky, because we can find neural correlates to all this, but we have no idea how a mechanical system could ever process meaning. Love, how do we metabolize the experience of love? What does it mean? Compassion, joy, empathy, fear, anger, jealousy. We saw all these emotions. We process them into molecules, right? Okay, so now we've got to two levels, which I think are clear, mind and body. The universe is a process, your body is a process. It's the same process as the universe. It's an ecosystem, so is your mind. It's energy and information. So far, no problem. E is equal to mc squared, and add the ingredient of information, and we are all set. Now we get to that part of us, which is really mysterious, because we all use these words: body, mind, and soul, body, mind, and spirit. So we have to ask ourselves, what's that? Now, if you ask scientists this, until recently, scientists have not bothered to understand consciousness other than mapping out the brain, which we've done very well, okay? But remember, mapping out the brain does not tell you what the source of thought is, what the source of imagination is. What's the source? Where does it come from? Does a neural network produce a thought? And if it does, how? Okay? These are questions that are, in science, considered the hard problem. But all spiritual traditions have said that there's a part of us which is even more non-local. Non-local means it doesn't have a specific location in space-time. Your body doesn't have a specific location in space-time. Today, my body is in Aspen, but the molecules of the body are from everywhere, right? Your mind doesn't have a specific location in space-time. But now let's go to a deeper domain, which the spiritual traditions have called the soul. And in a very simple way, if I was to tell you the differences between body, mind, and soul, let's do it in a very simple way. The body is the object of observation. You observe it, as is the world. Your mind is the process of observation, because you filter everything through your mind before you say what it is. It's a tree, it's a chair, it's a human being, it's a giraffe. Your soul is the observer. Okay? So in every experience, we have three components: observer, process of observation, and that which is observed. The process is the mind, the body is that which is observed, and so is the universe. Could they be the same thing in different disguises? We'll get to that. But for now, just say your core consciousness, which spiritual traditions call the soul, is the observer. You're observing me right now. So let's try something else. Instead of observing me now, or keep observing me, turn your attention to who is observing. So become aware of your observing self. That little presence you feel, that awareness you feel, that still point, That's you. It's not your mind, which might be saying, I wish I hadn't eaten so much at lunch, or I wish I'd gone to the bathroom before the lecture. That's a thought, okay? But it comes from somewhere. It comes from you, the observer. And then after you've had it, it goes back to where it came from. It disappears, okay? It came from the unmanifest observer, and it disappeared into the unmanifest observer. And here is where we embark on our journey to the enlightened brain. Because the enlightened brain is understanding the core consciousness, the soul, the spirit, that manifests as the mind and the body and the physical universe. Where is this observer? If I went inside your body, do you think in your brain I'd find a so-called homunculus that is observing? It's been tried. Nobody's found the observer. Okay? Surgeons have gone inside the brain and so on. Today, as you heard, we have PET scans and fMRIs, and you can look at every nook and cranny in your brain. There's nobody there. You know, these days I go to a lot of conferences where they talk about out-of-body experiences. The real mystery is how do we get an in-body experience without being in it? There is no observer inside your body, which can lead to only two conclusions. The observer doesn't exist, okay? It's just a socially induced hallucination. Or the other is, it's not inside the body. So where is it? And if you go deep into this question, you will see that the question is wrong. Because the observer doesn't weigh anything, it has no shape, it has no texture, it has no smell, it can't be seen, it cannot be touched, and yet, without it, there's no observation, and there's nothing to observe. So the great spiritual traditions, at least the one I come from, says, hold on to this part of yourself. It's the only real part of you. Everything else is a projection. You were a baby once. Different body, different mind. You're a teenager. You're this person, but there's that still observer inside you, or somewhere, okay, that has always been there. And it's the ultimate non-local self. Non-local means it has no location in space-time. Literally no location. Transcendent, which is a beautiful word because every spiritual experience is based on the experience of transcendence. Actually, if you look at all the spiritual experiences of the world, there are only 2 or 3 things in common. The experience of transcendence, which means not in this world anymore, beyond space-time, because even space-time are perceptual experiences, right? Where do you observe space-time? In yourself, right? So transcendence is a spiritual experience, but as a result of this, the emergence of what spiritual traditions call Platonic values, truth, goodness, beauty, harmony, evolution, love, compassion, joy, equanimity, peace. And the third spiritual experience, which is common to all traditions, is the loss of the fear of death. Because you've just transcended to that part of you that doesn't die because it was never born. Okay, it's transcendent, it's not in space-time. Okay, so based on this, let me tell you, and even with all the time that we have, we could spend a week talking about the non-local self, but let me share with you a particular map that makes sense, I hope, to you, that we can then explore through its biological correlates. Okay, so let me have the first slide, please. And I'm going to skip a lot of these because Rudy's shown some of them. Enlightenment is finding yourself, okay? If somebody said, what is enlightenment? It's finding myself. Beyond my body, beyond my mind, even possibly beyond my soul. Okay, so these are the different parts of the brain, and I'm not going to show them to you. You've already seen many parts of them. Neuroplasticity, you've heard a lot about it, so I'm not going to talk about it, but it does include the fact that we use different parts of the brain through intention, or through thinking, or through imagination, or through automatic behavior, or through emotions. The main thing to recognize is that your genes were created by your particular genes. You have inherited, and your brain is created by your genes, but your brain is sculpted by your experiences. Your brain is sculpted by your experiences. And you've already heard this morning that mindfulness and meditation and other forms of internal experience change both the structure of your genes and the activity, not the structure of your genes, the activity of your genes, and the wiring of your brain. Okay, so these are other parts of the brain that are being looked at. The insula is a piece of island tissue that's buried between the parietal and the temporal lobes. And although it's involved in all these other things, what I would share with you is that in the great yogic traditions, this part also monitors what's happening inside your body. And I think it actually gives you knowledge about the deep wisdom of your body, which in yogic traditions is called pratyahara. Pratyahara means going within and looking inside and becoming aware of the deep wisdom in your body, which mirrors the wisdom of the cosmos. So I'll take you through a meditation later that will activate the insula, and you'll see that it's actually quite simple. Okay, Rudy's described the limbic brain, also the reptilian brain. I think we have spoken enough about the cortical brain that I won't go into it right now. But I'm going to skip all these because I think, this mapping is done. Everybody in this room is getting to be familiar with it. But what I want to make one point here is your cortex is not the seat of moral reasoning or ethics. You use your cortex to actualize the expression of the state of consciousness you're in. Okay? And so, too, these are different aspects of your cortex that get activated depending on how you're using your consciousness, which is non-local. I will skip all this. I will skip limbic brain and skip triune brain. But I don't think we need to go on all this because it's covered. Let's come to point number 6. Love, compassion, empathy are emotions that I think we could say are taking to a new stage of evolution beyond the survival of the fittest, what Jonas Salk called survival of the wisest. Wisdom should become the new criterion for evolution, and wisdom is actually the complexity and the expression of complexity that arises through interbeingness. If you've ever heard Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist monk, when you ask him, who are we? He says, we are interbeings that inter-arise in the inter-isness. And all you have to do is understand the inter-isness to see where we are going in our future evolution as a species. But as it turns out, love, compassion, empathy also enhance survival and homeostasis through what is called limbic regulation and limbic resonance. And now we understand through epigenetics, which I'll invite Rudy back in a few moments to talk about it. Okay, but then what about these? Spiritual exaltation. We all have moments of ecstasy where you feel one with the universe. The beauty of the mountain was breathtaking. Time stood still. What is that experience that has been called a peak experience? Ektasis literally means to step out. Okay, what are these peak experiences, moments of transcendence? What motivates a scientist to explore scientific discovery and discover the secrets of the universe? And I would suggest that the map for this is limbic and neocortical modulation. And then from there we move into new territory, intuition, creativity, vision, a sense of the sacred. This is the next stage of our evolution as human beings. Now, there is, in spiritual traditions, a map for this. And I'm, again, going to skip a lot about this, the biology of all this. I'm going to go straight to enlightenment. And so this is a term perhaps you should be familiar with. It's called metacognition. It's the ultimate mindfulness. Observing ourselves, having a sensory experience, intentional perceptual experience, and self-observation, which activate the brain, which is the prefrontal cortex, the most recent evolutionary development of our cortical brain. All the science is showing that with mindfulness studies, etc. The ability to observe yourself without judging yourself. You know, Krishnamurti talked about it 50 years ago when he said the highest intelligence is the ability to observe yourself without judging yourself. And as you begin to observe yourself, things start to shift. And that is the basis, really, of all spiritual discipline. Enlightenment is non-reactivity. You transcend, literally, your reptilian brain. You activate what are called divine attitudes within you: loving, kindness, compassion, joy, equanimity. You have non-judgmental awareness of the external environment through the five senses, and through what is called interoception or pratyahara, the awareness of what's happening inside your body, you learn how to transcend. And in short, the spiritual disciplines are self-awareness, but self-awareness includes many things. It means awareness of my body. It means awareness of the sensory input through my five senses. It means awareness of my mental space, and it also means awareness of relationship, because I exist only in relationship. So self-awareness is an easy word to throw out, but it means a lot, okay? So self-awareness is all these components of awareness. But then there's self-reflection. Who is trying to be aware of what? Okay. There's self-reflection, who am I? And when I ask the question, who am I? Who's asking the question, who am I? Is who am I the right question to ask, or should I be asking, what am I? Okay? What do I want? What's my purpose? Why do I exist? Why is there a universe? Is there a God? Do we have a soul? What's the meaning of death? These are techniques that people have asked themselves these questions forever. And my grandkids ask these questions. Nobody stopped asking these questions. And then we get bamboozled by the superstition of materialism, and we stop asking these questions. And then we have to take drugs and this and that to feel fulfilled. So self-reflection is part, contemplation is part of that. And then transcendence, and then actually questioning your perceptual experiences as fundamental truth. I said this is fundamental truth. The galaxies and stars are fundamental truth, when in fact they are just species-specific modes of observation through a species-specific brain to a species-specific mode of questioning. Okay. There's no such thing as the universe as is. Okay. There is such a thing as the universe as perceived to all these modes of examination. Okay. So these are the techniques which lead to soul consciousness. So go back. Soul consciousness, which is awareness of the observer. Cosmic consciousness. Now I'm introducing a new term to you. Cosmic consciousness is when you're aware of the observer in the midst of the observation, whether you're dreaming, sleeping, or awake. It's to be in the world and not of it. It's to be local and non-local at the same time. Cosmic consciousness. So imagine a situation, and this is a practice in yogic traditions called yoga nidra, which means you practice yoga in sleep. Okay? And when you become adept at it, then you see that there are moments of deep sleep, but you, the observer, is fully awake. Or there are moments of dream state, but you, the observer, is fully awake. Or right now, I'm giving you this lecture, but a part of me is observing myself as I observe you. Okay? So when that state of awareness never leaves you, That's called cosmic consciousness. And then beyond that, so that would be the fifth state. The first three states are waking, dreaming, and sleeping. The fourth is soul consciousness. The fifth is cosmic consciousness. The sixth is divine consciousness. What does that mean? So I'll share with you a very beautiful story about the Buddha when he came out of a deep meditation in the Deer Park in Benares 2,500 years ago. And all he did was hold up a rose. And 7 of his disciples were watching, and he didn't say a word. And after a while, one of his disciples, Ananda, smiled. And they smiled at each other, and the sermon was over. It's a very famous sermon, by the way. It's called the Silent Sermon. So everyone went to Ananda. They said, you know, what happened? We saw a rose. Did you see anything else? And Ananda said, yes, I saw the rose, but I saw rainbows and sunshine. I saw earth and water. I saw wind. I saw the air. I saw the infinite void. I saw stars and galaxies. I saw the whole universe perceived as a rose. And in that moment, I experienced that consciousness in the rose, which is in me. And I communed with it. So divine consciousness is so called because then the divine is not difficult to find. The divine is impossible to avoid. Because you see the whole universe in every object of your perception. Every object of your perception is a frozen moment which actually doesn't even exist after you've perceived it, because it's an activity. And the final stage is called unity consciousness or enlightenment, where the observer within me and the observer within you and the observers all around us are experienced as one, and we see the whole universe as me. But not me, the local self, Deepak, or Deepak Chopra, which is even worse, me as the self of the universe. Because at the ground of being, the ground state, the self of the individual is the self of the universe. Can we map these states? Well, we are getting ready to. We are already doing studies where we are mapping psychologically people who are experiencing what we call higher states of consciousness. And what we're finding is biology is different in different states of consciousness. Perception is different in different states of consciousness. Cognition is different in different states of consciousness. Emotions are different in different states of consciousness. And identity is different in different states of consciousness. Who am I? A body. Who am I? The ego that calls itself Deepak Chopra. Who am I? The ecosystem recycling. Who am I? It's the stars and galaxies and everything that exists recycling through here. Who am I? I'm the source of the whole universe. Reality is different in different states of consciousness. So as we study these people, we see changes in sense of self, in perception, in cognition, in emotions, in memory. And now we can map them out through genes. So I'll stop here because this is a long discussion. I'll stop here right now because what I want to do is I want to bring Rudy back. And what's our perception of change right now? What time is it?